How come?
Facing where people see.
Anyone else? Which one seems the most powerful to you?
The way it's set up, I would say the one on this end, because of the row, it's still centered and is addressing the group. But if you separated those three chairs, like they do in some Protestant churches, then the center one would be the one with the power.
Okay. So if we moved them here, this one
Yeah,
would be
maybe
more powerful.
four.
This one counts too, so the four.
Yeah,
That even including that one over there.
this one might be sort of either support or the opposition, whichever way you want to take it, but it's off to the side.
Okay.
Is that the type of power we're talking about, or are we talking about physical power?
Well, what's your perception? Which do you see? Do you think it's middle, or an end, or the one off to the side?
I could certainly be the one off to the side.
Okay. What about if there were people sitting in all four? What if I do that? Does that change things?
Yeah, there's an interrogation.
Okay. That changes the sense of power? Okay. It doesn't? Is it still this one? Okay. Or would it be this one that's talking to them?
Could be.
Could be.
It could be either way,
Okay.
because you could have this one addressing a board, but on the other hand, this could be a tribunal with the accused centered, as in the movie The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, the German inquiry.
So
I've been
it,
interviewed
so,
by three people.
Yeah.
so it could be that this one has power over these three, or it could be that these three have the power collectively and have power over the one.
Or in the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, he had to take the orals and all of the professors were there. He was in a chair alone in the center of the room.
Okay. Does it change? Is there a more powerful one now?
No,
Okay.
they appear to be equal.
It all has to do with context. And I took the context because of the theme and direction of the talk, that we're talking political power. Now, if we're talking about other life situations, the context then changes, and the power structure changes accordingly.
Sure, sure. How about, let's try one more. What about if it's like that? Does that change things?
It's the flying bee.
Which one feels more powerful now?
That one. Probably this one.
Okay,
And the others are supportive.
okay. And
With,
I guess
with that set up, the one in forward would be sort of like powerful with these as just merely followers of this one, standing out in opposition. So that one would be,
you might have that power over the
or
others.
if you had an airplane,
Yeah.
that's the pilot.
Okay.
I saw it as the geese flying, and they take turns leading to make it easier on everybody else. So
Or when there's, political speech and they got everybody behind the speaker.
And how about now?
Those three.
Those three have all the power, don't they?
That was
That one's kind of an outcast.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put someone on the spot now. Okay. April, would you sit in one of the seats?
Sure.
Okay. Which one has the power now? Kind of
Wherever April is.
wherever April is.
April always carries the
This is
power.
just a
It
This
doesn't
is
matter
just
the
a ploy.
context.
Yeah.
If you were sitting and if you wanted to make yourself feel more powerful, how would you do it?
Yep.
Stand up. Okay. Okay. Great. Because that kind of shows the power that the power that you have inside yourself, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
feel.
The power within.
And because I'm short, I like to stand.
But sometimes power can be sort of from a humble position.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of pictures going back to the Bolshevik Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Lenin didn't always sit up front. He would sit off to the side making notes before getting up and raising an argument. I guess that was still when you had the dispute between the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another
Being at the
example.
side, it was like he was a cat waiting to spring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think also the student at Tiananmen Square standing in front of the tank.
Yes.
You know, the tank had the power,
Right.
but she stood it down because she had power inside her. Might come from bravery, might come from any number of things. So, keeping those in mind, that there are three different kinds of power. There's the power over. Somebody that's standing in front of a crowd and talking can often do that. A president, a king, sometimes a business leader could have power over. Sometimes a company could. Then there's power with others, where you stand up with others, like the 3 seats. And that's where the power lies, is when you stand shoulder to shoulder with somebody else. And couple that with the power from within. When you have that power, when you're confident, when you feel good about yourself, then you're shored up by the belief that what you're doing is right. And that itself constitutes power. And this power is something very important when you're trying to achieve something. So, advocates, just recently, we went to the county commission. We're trying to talk the county commission into funding a feasibility study, the Kanawha County Commission. It's going to be around $75,000, 50 to 75. It's pretty expensive. And we want them to do a feasibility study to see about turning the water system that poisoned us, Western American Water Company, into a public water system and putting it in the hands of the people. So we went to the county commission and we made up some really bright colored voice bubbles. So rather than just protest signs, there were voice bubbles. And the bubbles had different things where we were asking the county commission to help us. We weren't protesting the commission. We were saying, could you help the people? We need you to provide leadership for us. Mass media, we ended up, there were 12 of us stood there. And we all read off what was on the sign and said them out loud and in a row, and one of them even had water company charges us too much, grrr, and everybody would do it and read them as they went around, and ended up with the three local TV stations there. The newspaper came out, 2 radio stations came out. We ended up with about 6 hits, all just from this, holding up signs and asking the county commission to help us. And actually, Dave Hardy, one of the commissioners, said, I totally understand their frustration. I testified against the water company myself in the trial. They keep raising the rates and they're not helping the system at all. So, this was power together. So there were about 12 of us, and it was showing the power within. And it made a big impact, over a multi-million-dollar company, you know, facing down a multi-million-dollar company, that we have decided needs to go. They're not helping. So, you know, that's something about power, that you can do things when you have that power together, and when you have that, you know, the power with others and the power within, you can take down those that are seemingly in power above us.
There was, I saw a program years ago, because, well, one of my minors in college was political science.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a video clip or something, maybe on TV, and a guy was discussing what you are,
Mm-hmm.
power.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about even the most powerless can often find sources of power. And he gave the example of a convict in prison, and he's asking the guard for a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
And the guard sort of cusses and says, "Why should I give you a cigarette?" And he said, the convict said, "Well, if you don't, I'll beat my head against the wall, I'll be all bloody, I'll say you beat me up, and even though you will be acquitted, you'll have to fill out all these papers and attend a hearing and everything like that." So it seems that power is often you have to assess your enemy's power, your opponent's power,
Mm-hmm.
and know where you stand. Sometimes you can only gain a little. I think we're facing this in the upcoming election.
Mhm.
I'm not in love with Hillary, but on the other hand, right now maybe just stopping Trump and then building the movement. But relative power is something you have to deal with. And Saul Alinsky would say, if you win something little, you can take that victory to the people as what they can do united.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like the example, you know, the example that I did, just talked about. Well,
You have
with-
to play the
yeah.
long game. If you don't play the long game, you're gonna fail.
you do.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So when Mel and Rose sent out the call for money coming to UUC, getting back to that, the money started rolling in. We started getting checks and money coming in the mail, and the board got nervous. You know, how are we going to distribute this? Who would manage it? We're not set up for this. What are we going to do with it? You know, how are we going to give it? You know, it's coming in to help, you know, people that needed that had their water messed up, but how are we going to do that? You know, we'd have to pay somebody to interview people and see if they really need it and help with bills. It's too complicated. Well, with Reverend Trish's provocation, they decided to form a group to make recommendations to the board, and that group was called the Clean Water Fund Task Force. I'm also on that. We met many times. And really by the time the money started coming in, it was April or May before we started getting a lot of cash in. We decided that we would find groups who needed it. I was becoming more active in the activist community in Charleston, and they and several of the others knew people. So we decided we'd just hunt them down and we'd find the groups, and we would make this, and we'd focus it on direct relief, helping people that still didn't have clean water. Printer, for instance, still doesn't have clean water now, and in their area. Advocacy, people that are working to fix the problem, and educating the general public. We thought those were the three big things. Those were the three pillars of the task force. And the latter one, in part, became the Elk River Blues. We ended up donating money to over a dozen different groups, all of who fit one of those bills. There's a clean water hub, and giving money, and we gave them money so they could hand deliver water to the people in Printer. We found several advocacy groups, and between the film and others that were educating, there was a Women in Water group, which is still going on. So several of them are. So at that point, I'm gonna break and try and show the video. I think we can probably do this. Let me pull that up real quick. So Elk River Blues is where we got the money. This is a brief. It's about 4 minutes, and maybe I can balance it up here on top. I'm sorry, it won't be a very good. Won't make for a good video here.
We'll blow it.
Mhm.
I think it might have been better where it was.
I think it was.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure it was low enough or too high. I'm sorry.
People might want to come and sit in this front row.
Yeah. I'm done playing with chairs for a while. And let me get full screen over here, and hopefully it'll be loud enough.
Might be underneath.
Systems designed
That's
to
better.
protect,
That's
fail.
better.
Don't touch.
Okay.
Systems designed to regulate, fail. Systems designed to enforce, fail.
These are not evil human beings. It's very possible that they knew this was a floating product. It's very possible in one phone call they knew this was cold cleaning agent, and that they didn't really think things were that awful. But you have to err on the side of caution.
46 rivers begin in West Virginia. As each starts, the clean water resource is astounding. Then, as they flow, they soon collect the garbage of neglect and human greed.
This was not a coal company. This was a chemical supplier that where the leak occurred. As far as I know, there was no coal mines within miles of this incident.
It wasn't solely a coal disaster. It wasn't solely a chemical disaster. It wasn't solely a water incident. It was all of these things.
But there are things we were taking for granted. That industry was doing the right thing, that government was adequately protecting our resources. And we found out that all of that was not something that we could just assume was happening.
From the beginning, the gift can always be found in nearby mountains. Clean, precious water is readily available in West Virginia. This is where it begins.
It's a trailer. By the way, the film is actually available on Vimeo with for free. You can make a donation if you wish. But you can watch the whole film. It's about 56 minutes and very well done. And the narrator was our interim minister, Reverend Tricia. So we kept it in-house.
Just Google Elk River Blues.
Yep, Elk River Blues, and it's on Vimeo, Vimeo, and there are several, and Mike Youngren is the gentleman's name. Here you go. All right, and we'll get to the other one in a minute. So that's one of the things that we helped invest in. It was Elk River Blues, and the theory that he made it actually. He used to work for public broadcasting, so he made it into the size that public broadcasting does a TV show for. So it is available and can be and may well be yet, sent out nationwide, but it is free and available. So that was one of the things that we did invest in. He donated so much of his, all of his time. I mean, we basically, the donation got a drone camera, and we paid for travel. He went up to the headwaters and filmed it, but that was almost it. But he put in thousands of hours on that, making it. So, and it turned out really good. I highly recommend that you watch it. So, when I spoke about advocates for a safe water system, that's the other group that I'm in, or the social group that I'm in, advocacy group, formed out of that one meeting right after the spill. We started out as a billing group because the water company was charging people 3 to 10 times as much for their bills for the month of January when we couldn't use water as they did for December. December's bill were much less, and it just didn't seem right. So we had a advocacy lawyer on our side, and he learned, and we investigated that it's the Public Service Commission is the one to complain to. We had a large showing, worked with the NAACP and met at a church, and he actually called them up and made a formal complaint over the speaker. His phone worked on it. And then we marched down and took bills to the water company. People's that had to replace hot water heaters and filters and buy water, all of those things. They were going to charge us. Well, we delivered bills to them, and had a big basket full. Had quite a bit. That was probably around 300 people turned out for that, and on a snowy February morning. But advocates, so we did that. Then we started researching. What are we supposed to do here? What is a clean water system? What's a safe water system? Is it, we were all new to this too. Well, it turns out there are 5 elements to a safe water system, and that's about it. You need to have monitoring, both at the intake, so you know what you're sucking out of the river, and it's good to have it upstream, so you know what's coming at you. You need to have a secondary source, which is sort of like driving a car and not having a steering wheel when you don't. When something does contaminate, especially a river, your primary source, you can turn it over to the second one. Cincinnati has a wonderful water system. The most polluted river in the world, in North America, is the Ohio. And that's where they get their water. And they have one of the best water systems in the nation. When the chemical plume passed Charleston and went down the river, they just switched over to their secondary source. It floated on by. They tested the water because they had monitoring all the way up the Ohio and into the Kanawha, not as far as Charleston. And when they saw when there was no more in it, they switched back to the main system. So they have a great one. So you need monitoring. You need a secondary source. You need good infrastructure, and that's another thing that West Virginia American Water does not have. And then the fifth thing is a good system to communicate with emergency services, with government, with broadcasting, a way to get the word out to people, all of that. And that also the water company failed at. They even were not, there is an emergency services committee branch in Charleston, and they were not a part of it. They did not show up, said Dr. Gupta, at the time in charge of the Kanawha Charleston Health Department, and now the state health department. So we tried working with the water company, getting word to them. We did got the PSC to open a general investigation into what they did wrong, and that got stalled. One of the commissioners who had been their lawyer recused himself, Mike Albert, and then another one quit, and the governor didn't appoint another commissioner, so that would have left one. The one recused himself, you need two. One quit, so we're down to one, and a year later, just shy of 11 and a half months, Governor Tomlin did finally appointed another one. So that stalled it for a year, and then they put it off for another 9 months now. So we're still, it's supposed to be in September, we'll see, but we'll see. So so we are still working on that one. We did intervene in the last rate case that they raised the rates. So those are all things that we were doing. But about a year ago, we decided to start the Our Water campaign. We tried working with them. We tried working, getting them to make changes, getting the PSC to make them make changes, kept running into roadblocks. So the next thing is put it in the hands of the people. So a couple of things about that. Why do it? Well, actually, public water is the norm in our country. It's not the exception. About 80% of the U.S. is already served by public water systems. And they, of course, charge us outrageous rates, and all of their customers in West Virginia. We pay the third highest rate of any major water system in the country. If they get the surcharge that they have proposed, we'll be number 2. Anybody want to guess who number 1 is? What other water system have you heard in the news in the last year?
Flint?
That's the one. Yep, they pay the highest rate of any water company in this nation, and we're number 3. If they get the surcharge, we'll be number 2. Go West Virginia. Fact. That's major water systems. Some very small ones may have higher rates, but Death Valley pays about 1/10 of what Flint does for their water. It's outrageous. They are also served by managed by a public water or by a private water system. It is public, but it is managed by a private. The regulatory process is not working for us. The water company has asked for 8 rate increases since the year 2000, and rates have gone up more than 70% since then. The last one was business as usual after they requested the largest rate increase in history. The Public Service Commission went ahead and granted 15.1% without scrutinizing what they were going to use the money for. They're still at risk for chemical contamination. The new one does not monitor for MCHM, and the company still has no secondary source for the 300,000 people. We put West Virginia American Water Company puts corporate profits ahead of our safety. The company removes its chemical testing laboratory, and Elk River removed its chemical testing laboratory from the Elk River Center to save money back in 2004-2005. There was none at the time of the spill. They have since put in another one, but it's actually we have chemical engineer, Dr. Price, and working with us too, and he said it's definitely substandard, the one that they got. It's a bargain basement. They're not maintaining the infrastructure. They're leaking at about a third of the water that comes that they treat before it gets to between what they treat and what they can bill for. So about a third of the water is just leaking into the ground out of the pipes. And of course their priorities are driven by the parent company. West Virginia American Water is part of American Water Works, which is based in New Jersey, and they tell them what to do. That's what they tell them what to do. And one of the biggest ones for us actually is that they keep the public in the dark. They refuse to answer any questions, and the light is a good thing. Perfect timing, and fans. Yeah. So they basic questions about emergency planning and preparedness during the Public Service Commission's investigation, they just would refuse to answer them. We all know about redacting, blacking out things. Yeah, they even redacted the Public Service Commission's phone number and address in their document. I mean, it was just page after page of black lines, pretty funny. And what we found out once we decided to do it is others have done this. Actually, there were 3 cases of remunicipalizing, taking it over from a private company and putting it back in the hands of the public in the year 2000, and now there's around 35, pushing 40. Florida has done it. One very, very similar. Communities in Florida got together. They were tired of the unreliable and untrustworthy service of their water company, which was actually Aqua Florida, which is a subsidiary of Aqua America, which is the next one down. American Water Works is the biggest water company. Aqua America is number 2. And they pressured Aqua into selling their Florida utilities to local municipalities. So they did it. Multi-county, multi-municipal area, and their water rates have gone down and the quality of their water has gone up since. Also Indianapolis, Claremont, California, Apple Valley, California, in Montana, 2 more in California and Arizona have all done the same thing, taken over the water system. So we can make that happen. So that's what my group is working on. As you all know, and as many of you do, about a month ago, we had another water emergency here. A third of West Virginia, so they're saying now, was affected. I'm from up the Elk River. It's part of why this means so much to me. But I know, Raynell, Richwood, worse, as bad or worse. So Clendenin was the town higher than the roof in this building. Was underwater. So here's a reading I did just a couple weeks ago, or a story I told. Changed it just a little bit to keep it update. So just over a month ago, on Friday morning, I woke and saw that Richwood was underwater. Then I read a post from my friend Autumn Hopkins. We lost everything. It's gone. And one of her members, Jacob Allen, had to swim out of his house, pulling his grandpa. After reading about and looking at the images of the flood all morning, I went to UUC about noon, together with some friends and my friend Mike Pushkin. We started getting the word out and taking donations there on the front porch. And it worked. We had 2 or 3 truckloads of goods donated that afternoon and hauled to Elkview that very day. Several more have followed. I remember Mike saying to me as we were unloading cases of water, "Here we go again, Paul." Both fortunately and unfortunately, we're better at water crises now. I didn't know what to do in 2014 when that happened, but you open a donation center, you ask for help, you take it to them. We acted. The day before, on Thursday morning, I was looking at UUA's General Assembly schedule for workshops I could attend that might help UUC. I was a little nervous. It was my first GA, and a lot excited. I hope to have some fun and learn something, and maybe even pull a Ellie Mae Clampett and hog-tie a minister and bring him back with me. Since our settled minister had left, had backed out. That all changed. That was before the flood. By Saturday morning, on my way to the GA in Columbus, I was a man on a mission. Our state, my state, needed help really, really badly. My Elk River had flooded. The river I jumped off the Queen Shoals Bridge into in high school, the river my daughters learned to swim in, had raised 27 feet in a matter of hours. At least 8 towns, as you all know, including Clendenin and Clay, where I went to high school and where I lived near, had flooded. As well as all the countless hollers where countless people are now homeless. As I said, in 2014, a great many UUs and others from across the nation sent funds to us after the chemical leak poisoned the people. Well, I decided I'm going to GA. I'm going to talk to as many as I can and get help again. I mean, if I, a founder of Advocates for Safe Water, me, who had been christened by the Queen of West Virginia Rivers, Angie Rosser herself, as a water warrior, Paul, who helped form UUC's own Clean Water Task Force, as a member of the Safe Water Roundtable, if I couldn't convince a bunch of UUs that a climate change caused environmental disaster in a state that had been a victim of extraction industry for over a century, one involving water of all things, to give money and help, well, who could? Fortunately, Mel and Rose were at GA, or I'd have fallen right on my face. I didn't know anybody there. Mel Hoover knows everybody in GA. He hired and helped train half of them, and the other half he worked with. So he knows them all. So we sat down and we developed a game plan. And then we set out. Mel had the connections, Rose had the compassionate tears, and I was armed with righteous passion and Facebook photos. First, we tried to catch the GA moderator, but just missed him, and then talked to somebody who had been doing a workshop with him, Susan Leslie. And after I spoke to her and showed her the pictures, I got it. She cried. I made her cry. I had her. Then on the way to the dinner with Susan, Mel ran into the president of the UUSC, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, Bill Schultz. Since he was leaving the post in 13 days, the next president, the new president, Tom Andrews, was with him too. And we had a good 30 to 45 minute meeting in the lobby of the Hilton. And we convinced them also, this is important, this needs help, we need help here. We went on to talk to the UU Ministry for Earth, the new president for Standing on the Side of Love, Caitlin Breedlove, a UU trauma group, and sat down finally with Ms. Leslie to work out the game plan. And she was going to be the go-between between UUSC, which is mostly international, and UUA, which is mostly national. But we got Bill and Tom hooked. So several times the next day, the West Virginia floods were mentioned at GA on that last Sunday. And appeals for help went out to the thousands of UUs there, and still are. They've been on Facebook, they've been on the UUA side. So UUs do know about our people's plight and are stepping up. Fortunately, we now have a system in place. We just reactivated the Clean Water Task Force and started doing what we were doing before. Once again, the focus on direct relief, which I think is the more need now, advocacy, and then education. We want to keep the word getting out in the months to come. Cleaning this mud, rebuilding is going to take months and months and months, and the nation's already forgotten about it. You know, Melina said the same words as Michelle. You know, who cares about the flood in West Virginia now? You know, we had one convention, we got another one starting tomorrow. Nobody's paying attention nationally. So we want to work on getting that word, keeping that word going out. And I think we can. So my friend Autumn, and I'm going to show you another brief video, 5 minutes, said, hell is not hot. It is not flames. It is unescapable floodwaters. Cue her up real quick.
nobody could sleep, so I said, you know, I'm going to go home and check the house. We'd left all the backyard chickens here in the coop. And when I pulled down onto the driveway was mostly gone. And so I backed up and I turned the truck around so that the light shone on the house. And the water was already over our front steps. And all my beehives were gone. So like I could see some of them like floating out over top of what had been our garden and out towards the river. We got back in the truck and we went back to Mom and Dad. Parents have lived in that neighborhood for 50 years. Water has never been in that neighborhood. Friday morning when we got up, we were just trapped. We couldn't go either direction. So like we couldn't go towards Clendenin, which we found out later had just been totally destroyed, and we couldn't come back towards our house, which is towards Charleston, because the four-way stop had been flooded. And my aunt lives 2 houses over in this neighborhood. And she sent me a picture of my house. Covered. You know, water was up above the windows. So it was late Saturday before we could get a car through the four-way stop to get back up here. And so when we got here, I could see the top of our house. And I could see the very tip top of our chicken coop. And that was it. And, you know, I stood there and just broke down. It's a horrible sensation to see everything that you work for underwater. I've lived in West Virginia my whole life. This is my home. As a farmer, I feel like I'm doubly connected to this earth and to this land. After the water crisis in 2014, lots of my friends left. Lots of my friends left. And we talked about leaving. I don't want to leave here. I don't want to go anywhere else. But it's like being driven away. And so, you know that we can't live here on this piece of property anymore. And we've talked about leaving. And part of me would like to leave. But part of me would die if I left.
Actually talked Keely into, I was trying to talk her into a full-length feature, because Mike had moved to Colorado. I got 5 minutes out of her, so I got that short, but it's so moving and so good. That she's a friend I met during the chemical spill, was down here videotaping. So you're gonna see her name again. There's a young, mid-20s, and she's a fantastic filmmaker. We'll see her at Sundance. We'll see her. You know, I have no doubt she's just phenomenal. So, and you know, I know others have had these. You know, have been affected by this flood and are affected by the flood. I just really liked I wanted to show that. Partly the moving images that she has, and then Autumn really tells the story so well. And you know what she's also written. She has a GoFundMe campaign, the one that was interviewed, and she's written just tearjerker stories about what she's been going through this last month. And the amazing thing is that, or the, not amazing, the thing is that she has the voice and the words that she can write to make it out, to get it out, whereas so many people just don't. All they can say is, we lost everything. That's all the words they have. She's able to get that feeling out. So I keep trying to push her words out into national consciousness. She's been on Huffington Post, has written for it, has a blog on it, and this video was on Huff. So that people will see it, so she can be speaking for, for the ones that don't have that kind of a voice, they can't tell it. That's about all I got. Any questions about anything? Anything I can, you guys ready to take charge? You feeling the power within and stand up and work together and be able to do, to make big change? What do you think? Anyone?
One of the things, I'll put this in before I make my comment. One of the things that impressed me years ago about UU services was the fact that we do discuss issues and have this dialogue, because my experience was from having the Baptist shoved down my throat, then being a California Episcopalian, which was very liberal, but still you had the no real discussion. They did have coffee hour